Hey!
Hey, y'all.
We Teach Love here.
Right? Dominique and Rachel.
Yo, yo.
So we're back to talk about healthy relationships some more.
If I tremble, I'm really sorry. This selfie stick thing is complicated.
Yes. So we were talking about what we do with We Teach Love, which is teach healthy relationships, and how some people might not know what that is. And so we should probably define healthy relationships and just some of the terms that we use a lot. So do you want to define a relationship, Rachel?
Ooh, relationship. I like that word. I like most words. Relationship. So when we talk about relationship or the relating or what it means to relate, it requires two things, right? To interact and have some sort of interaction, engagement with one another. Mm-hmm. So often we think about relationships, we think about relating with another human, but we relate with a lot of other things, right? If you have a pet, you relate with your pet all the time. If you have a car and you get in it and you drive it, you relate with your car, right? Yeah. Are you getting its oil changed? Are you treating it well? Mm-hmm. Is it mutually beneficial, right? Mm-hmm. Like, does it supply you with something? Mm-hmm. Yes, of course, transportation. So relationships are basically any two things or more, because you can have a relationship more than one thing at a time. But any two things that are interacting, engaging. When we talk about, we're going to do this separately, I'm getting a little carried away, but in a healthy relationship, those things should be mutually beneficial. Mm-hmm. And in a really, really healthy relationship, they should be unconditionally beneficial. Mm-hmm. And not so transactional, but more principled in how you give and take and share quality in quality relating.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Is that
I think
about
that covers it? Yeah. I think that's sufficient.
I think the only thing we kind of left out that we talked about a minute ago was you relate with yourself a lot. Mm-hmm. And while I am not separate from me, there are parts of me that are a little bit separate, right? Yeah. There's my mind, my body, my spirit. Mm-hmm. They all relate with one another inside of me. Mm-hmm. There's my ego. There's my intuition.
Right.
Those things I can relate to with an aware mind, with consciousness and an aware mind. I can intentionally relate to those things as if they're separate, even though they're very connected and affect one another. I can think and consider my intuition kind of separate from my rational mind.
Right.
And that's a relationship too. And
I think, not to jump too far ahead, but the relationship that you have with yourself, the way that we teach is that relationship is the bedrock, is the foundation for any other relationship that you have. So, whether it's with an inanimate object or another person, your relationship with yourself impacts how you will.
This selfie stick is killing me, y'all.
Rachel's not having a good relationship with the selfie stick right
at
now.
All.
But that relationship is how it ultimately impacts every other relationship that you have. With everything. So it is definitely an important one to nurture. And to make sure that one is healthy. And so when we talk about healthy relationships, we oftentimes talk about the 5 factors necessary to build a healthy relationship. And I say build because there's a particular order that they should go in. I don't like to use the word should.
You're right.
But
should.
that serves you better.
Yes. They're more effective in this order, and we're going to, not today, but there's a really good reason for all that. We're going to touch on it a little bit.
Yeah. So the first one, which most people I think can guess, is communication.
And let me just say, shout out Mom. Hey, Tamara. My mom used to say at the dinner table all the time to me and my sisters, communication is the key. Communication is the key. So much we were like, oh, God, if she says it one more time. And then all of us are parents. And we are now saying it to our children all the time. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're being interrupted.
Say hi, you're on a video.
Right. Yeah, so
So yeah, so she would say it all the
Communication.
time, and it would drive me crazy, and all my sisters,
Yeah.
and we all say it. So number one, absolutely groundwork for any relationship.
Yes, communication is the key, is now like a hashtag. It's definitely become a cliche, but it's true. And it is the foundation for building a healthy relationship, because that's like the beginning of, excuse me, any external relationship that you have. It's the beginning of your self relationship too. But, like as friends, we have an open, honest dialogue with each other. And that establishes all of the other factors that we're going to talk about. If we don't have an open, honest communication with each other, then we can't build a healthy relationship. And I say that the way that we interact is unique to our relationship. So, like, the way that I talk to Rachel is like how I talk to my friends, but there's also unique things that when I say them to Rachel, they mean something to Rachel versus if I were to say them to my mom or another friend. It's like, this is how I talk to Rachel, and she understands it because we've had communication about communication.
So it's, and I know we've talked about even using this term for this, but it's like we have our own language. Mm-hmm. We don't want to say that in particular, but like maybe a dialect of language, right? Like, there are things that we just naturally know, we understand, and we are on the same page. And then there are also ways that, you learn with an individual, like how to approach them or how they receive information well. Yeah. And it's, I know as a teacher, it's like differential learning. It's kind of like that. Mm-hmm. Like you build your relationship around how you communicate with one another, and it might be different person to person, even though kind of your foundation of who you are isn't different person to person. Right.
And, especially when you're talking about, like people of color and people who speak different languages, like they certainly, I think there's definitely like a slang that I use with certain people.
Sure.
So, like there's lots of ways to understand this, but the idea is with each relationship, you sort of develop a dialect of language with that person, and that helps you to have more clear, honest communication with them, and it also helps you to establish boundaries and explain, what you consider respectful or disrespectful, like what kind of space you need, like those kinds of things, which is the next factor in building healthy relationships, is safety and respect.
Yes.
Which I don't think is as cliche as communication.
No, it's probably
respect maybe, but not safety.
Yeah, and I think like people when they talk about relationships, they would be like, communication and trust, and that's enough. And it's not actually enough. Yeah. Having communication to be able to talk about things like safety and respect is really important, but it's not just like, there's not one way to feel safe or be respected. And so you have to know, this is back to the relationship with yourself, you have to know what that even is for you. What does it mean to be and feel respected? What is safety and security for you, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a slew of different traumas and triggers for those traumas, and you're always learning them. You're never probably going to know what all of yours are because they're ongoing. But as you know and as you recognize what makes you feel safe or unsafe, how important it is to be able to communicate that and build some boundaries with the person you're building that relationship with.
And to have established through your communication that comfortability to articulate what those boundaries are so that you do truly feel safe and respected.
And I would also say a huge piece to this safety and respect is that through communication, you've probably developed a boundary, a space to be able to speak up in a moment that maybe you do not feel safe. Mm-hmm. Like you just found out that makes me feel very unsafe, or that feels really disrespectful. To be able to say like, whoa, hey, that's a thing. I just figured it out. Agreed. So it's not just about like knowing all the things that are safe and respectful for you, but also knowing that you need a space to address them as you figure them out and they come to be.
I agree. That's
obvious.
Really good.
Cool.
The third one is trust. And what I think is interesting, I think when we get to this one, you really start to see why they have to go in this order. I think that's like where it's like it becomes painfully obvious. You cannot, when I'm teaching a class, I will often say, you cannot trust someone that doesn't respect you, that you don't feel safe with, that you haven't communicated with effectively. So, you know, and when I'm talking to someone about their relationship with whoever, and they say that they don't trust that person, it usually means there needs to be more communication, or that there hasn't been enough communication about safety and respect. Like there has been some violation, and so there hasn't been enough communication about what they need to feel safe, what their triggers are, what their boundaries are. You know, what makes them feel respected, disrespected.
If you haven't done that, if you haven't set your boundaries for respect and safety, of course you don't trust somebody.
Right.
Because the truth is, and leave it to me to bring it back to you and you, if you don't trust somebody because they don't know your boundaries, or maybe they know them and they're not honoring them, and you're allowing it, the truth is you don't trust you.
Yep.
Because it's more your responsibility than theirs to hold others accountable to towing that line and respecting your boundaries. And if you aren't going to do that, then your trust issue is not with them.
Yeah.
It's with you.
And that's why your self-relationship is so important, and your self-relationship will be reflected to you by your other relationships. Because for that reason, if you feel like you can't trust somebody, it's because you don't trust yourself. Meaning you haven't done the work to figure out maybe what your boundaries are. Are we still going?
Same back to being a kid again. And I love these because we've all heard them, and they probably are cliche, or you got sick of hearing your parents. But you would point at your sibling and your mom would say, "Don't point." When you point at someone else, you have 3 fingers pointing back at you. And I was always like, that's so silly. Like, what? So true. Every time you say, I don't trust that person over there to respect me. Okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stick around? Because if you stick around, the truth is you don't trust you to hold them accountable to respect you.
Yeah.
Or you're going to make an informed choice and hold them accountable, or choose to spend your resources, time, space, energy elsewhere. Right.
And if you don't hold them accountable, then you are breaking down trust with yourself as well as them.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the third factor. There are 5. The fourth one is balance. And with balance, I think it's important to understand balance from 2 different perspectives, at least 2. There may be more. One, there has to be a certain level of balance or equality within your relationship, right? It can't be one-sided. It can't be 70-30. There has to be some balance just between the 2 things, right? It has to be mutually beneficial, like you said. There has to be reciprocity. And I think even with that, it's important to remember balance with imbalance. So if we are equal, there will still be times that we're not equal, and that's okay.
So the idea is, the scale doesn't always have to be perfectly balanced.
Right.
But over the course of a relationship, it has to be, the duration of time it's spent to the left or the right should be balanced.
Yeah.
So if it's always to the right, we can't say that's okay. That imbalance is not okay. But if it's to the right for 6 weeks, and then it goes back to the left for 2, and then back to the middle, and then back to the left for 4, hey, we got balance, right? Yeah. The duration of time we spend out of balance, which is natural in life, should be equitable. Yeah. And not perfectly. Nobody is literally counting hours. Like, that's not realistic.
Right.
But if it's a feeling, and this is really nuanced, and I'm sorry for anybody that doesn't like nuance. You might want to get over it if you're going to have relationships.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing.
It is about a feeling. If you feel like you're not getting what you need, being able to communicate about your boundary that's not being met, so you can trust that person will honor it, so they will honor the balance you need in their relationship to keep it healthy and strong, is vital.
Yeah.
So we just wrapped all 4 into that one.
Right.
You're welcome.
But then that's one way to look at balance. The other way to look at it that I think is really important when it comes to relationships, especially because we have so many, is that your one relationship, our one friendship, has to be balanced with my other friendships, with my other relationships, with my relationship with my partner, with my parents, with my, overall extended family, with my job, with my hobbies, with, the time I spend alone. There has to be a balance for each relationship against all the others. So it's like you have to constantly find balance with all of your relationships, including the one with yourself, making sure that you have alone time. So I think a lot of times, especially with partners, in the beginning, you want to spend like all your time together, which is really cute. But then you have to like adjust that so that you can still spend time with your friends, spend time with your family. Sometimes it means bringing them along, but
sometimes it doesn't.
But sometimes it doesn't. And then also respecting each other's boundaries so that you can still nurture your self relationship, doing things on your own. Like, shout out to my friend. She just posted today, so I think it's okay to mention. She's going to Carnival.
Oh, what?
And yes. She's a mom, and she's married. She's got 2 beautiful kids. Shout out to Elon. And she was mentioning how this is her first time, I think in like 6 years, going on a vacation by herself. Because, you become a mom, you become a wife, and she works, and she has friends, and she has family, and she has all the things. So taking that time out for self in such a big way doesn't necessarily happen all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's balance. Mm-hmm. That's her having and practicing balance, which is really important, because if you're giving yourself constantly to one relationship or one role in your life, that's not balanced, and that's not healthy.
Facts.
Hashtag facts.
Hashtag facts.
And then, so that's the 4th factor. The 5th and final factor is intimacy. And we like to think that these factors apply to all relationships. So when we say intimacy, we don't just mean sexual intimacy or romantic intimacy. We mean
vulnerability and sitting silently with a friend.
Yeah,
and
that sacred time you spend with another person,
sharing
or
another
thing. Yeah, sharing a secret, holding hands,
hugs.
Yeah. One of the examples I like to use when I'm teaching this is what I thought was so cute was President Barack Obama.
Ooh, our guy.
He used to read, I don't know if he still does, used to read the Harry Potter series with, I believe it was Malia.
Yeah.
And that was like their thing. And I think when we're talking about intimacy, we're talking about a thing that might set your relationship apart from some of the others. Like, circling back to what we just said about balance, like it might be the thing you do with this one person. Mm-hmm. It might, especially when you're talking about a monogamous romantic relationship, intimacy is sacred to that relationship in a certain way. Like, this is the only person that you kiss. This is the only person that you like have sex with. This is the only person that you hold hands with.
Yeah, and you could even stretch that, like, well, here we're gonna bring all 5 back. Like even in a poly relationship, that the intimacy is less about it being isolated for like one person. It might be multiple relationships that you have, but the making sure there's balance, trust, you're talking about the boundaries in that level of intimacy and sharing, and you're communicating is all part of keeping those relationships. So it isn't for any one type of relationship, and intimacy isn't, it doesn't have to be that you can only be intimate with one person in your life. I can have a really intimate friendship, which I have a few really intimate friendships, and then I can have a really intimate relationship at the same time. And when we talk about things, last week kind of talked about like jealousy a little bit in our anxiety talk, but as long as these 5 factors are occurring and you're using them and relating with whoever it is, then things like jealousy can go away. Because if I have a friend that's jealous of another friend, I need to know why, and I need to reassure, affirm, nurture whatever it is you feel like you're not getting, so that you know that we're intimate,
right?
And I can both be intimate with you and them,
right?
And it's not bad or good; it's different,
right?
And
it's balanced.
And it's balanced. Yeah.
So So that's, that's important. And I think it's critical to, when you hear intimacy, especially when we're using it, to think of it in a broader way than we typically use it in society. It is not strictly sex.
Yeah.
It's much deeper than that. I think that's actually selling it short. It's a
anybody
huge
that
idea.
has felt intimate with somebody, they know that the key factor to that intimacy is less the physical interaction that we're going to share.
Yeah.
And it's far more about the fact that I feel safe to share it.
And to be emotionally vulnerable with another person.
I can think of the first intimate friendship I had in like middle school when I was sitting with a friend watching TV in silence, and the fact that I could sit there in silence with her was intimate because we didn't have to be entertaining one another.
Yeah.
And at a young age, when you're new friends, that felt really vulnerable to sit silently and watch TV.
And that you just made me think of another aspect of vulnerability and intimacy, because they are so intertwined.
So
like growing up, you didn't let everybody come to your house. Like there were certain friends who could come over to your house and spend the night. There were certain friends who could come and they could watch TV and have dinner with you, but they had to go home. There were friends that you only saw at school and you were fine with just seeing them at school. Like there are levels of intimacy there. There are, people, there are friends that it was like, they're spending the night, they're in your room, we might be in the same bed, because we have an intimate friendship. Right. Versus I wouldn't do that with just anybody, and I wouldn't do that necessarily with all of my friends.
And back to the communication part, I might be able to do that with this friend because whatever language, dialect we have, whatever understanding we have in the way we communicate, I know you're not going to think it's funny that we're doing that thing because we're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
So,
agreed. Like going
all
on school trips.
Things just go round and round.
Right. You just made me think of like going on school trips. You picked who you were going to room with and stuff, because it's like these are the people I feel comfortable being intimate with. These are people I feel comfortable.
Look, and in college, playing basketball, we would
with.
Be roomed with whoever, and it was all about like developing relationships with other teammates and team culture. And sometimes I was like, dang, I don't want to share a bed with them. I don't even know them like that.
Right.
But here we go.
I don't want to know them like that.
And then somebody be like, my best friend, we'd be sharing a bed and we'd be full spooning. It's like, cool. Like, you the big one or the little one today? Scoot over. So, I think that intimacy comes with a level of comfort, security, safety, vulnerability.
That can only be built if
the
it
first
is
4
preceded
steps.
by those first 4
Which
steps.
is why our order is super important.
Yeah.
You cannot hear me. You cannot
hear this.
Have intimacy if you do not have trust, safe space, communication about that, and some sort of balance in your relationship. Yeah. You can do things that people do when they're intimate with people. Sure, go have sex, do that. But it's not necessarily intimate just because it's physical interaction with somebody.
Yeah, and it's certainly not healthy just because you do this act.
Yeah, you can do those
Without
things.
These things,
healthily,
it is not a healthy interaction
or
necessarily.
Unhealthy. Right. We want you to be healthy.
Yeah, and by healthy we mean, just to throw this in real quick, by healthy, I think it's important to make the distinction between healthy and normal, because a lot of times we describe relationship behaviors as normal, and yes, they most certainly are normal, meaning common.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're healthy.
Right.
A healthy relationship is one that, again, is mutually beneficial. It serves you at your highest, at your best. It's one that recognizes you as you and this other person, if it's 2 people, as whole people. A healthy relationship is one, where there's nobody tearing each other down. There's no one, being disrespectful, where you are honoring each other and your boundaries and who you are as individuals in a relationship. Would you say?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I kind of mentioned like transactional versus principled, which is a Mark Mason article that I read and fell in love with. you should be acting toward somebody in a relationship because it's how you act toward people in your life and in relationships. Not because if you act that way, you'll get this back from them, which is the transactional piece. We want to behave more principled, meaning I do this because I do this. And you get to benefit because it's who I am. And
it means you gotta know who you are.
And I want you to do things that are principled and unconditional for me, with me, nurture me in that way. And the fact that we're both behaving principled is reciprocity and balance. And so, to do things, to say I love you, hoping that they'll then do this, don't do that. Because that doesn't serve you as an individual. It's not healthy for you. That means you might just compromise who you are, your principles, if you think it could get you transactionally a response you wanted.
Yes.
And that's not worth it.
That's manipulative, folks.
That is manipulative. That is abuse. You are starting to become an abuser if you operate transactionally on a regular basis. So, and it's not to say you won't in your life, and there aren't relationships that are transactional. I'm never absolute. There's never one way. It's not good and bad. It's not right and wrong. It's always both and. But in these very intimate relationships, it's a more solid way to move through life if you can move principled instead of transactionally in dealing with your people.
Yeah. So we hope this is helpful when you're applying this to all of your relationships, most importantly, the relationship that you have with yourself. Remembering to, be open and honest with yourself and with others. Remembering to articulate what makes you feel safe, what your boundaries are, what your triggers are, meaning to do that self-work to figure out what those things are first so that you can articulate them to somebody else and you can recognize them when they're violated. Of course, all of those things to build up trust with other people, and, to call them to the carpet when they, so that you can trust yourself, call them to the carpet and hold them accountable when they, fall short of the standards you guys have set. Making sure that you're maintaining balance within your relationship, however that looks, balance within balance, as well as balancing, each relationship you have with the others in your life. And then, of course, sacred
intimate,
intimacy.
man.
Get intimate.
Do it. It feels good.
Get intimate, get vulnerable, and do not, I don't think we mentioned this, do not be intimate with someone that you don't trust. Do not be intimate with someone with whom you cannot be vulnerable.
I'm gonna hold Dominique accountable right now. Say that differently. Tell me what you do want to do.
I love her. Only be intimate with people with whom you trust, with whom you feel safe and comfortable, who you are confident will honor your boundaries, who have proven that they will honor your boundaries, and who you say you are and who you want to be. Only be intimate with those people.
They deserve it.
They deserve it. I was about to say they earned it.
They earned it. They deserve you in that way.
They deserve, and that is who you, when you build that is who you will want to share yourself with in an intimate way. Your intimate secrets, everything. You will want to share those things with those people who have earned it that way. So remember all of these things.
But before you do that, go get intimate with you.
That part.
And yeah, that's it. I think we can stop there.
I think so
that's
too.
That's a good ending.
That was good. Thanks, guys.
Sorry for the interruptions. That was awkward.
Oh.
But we love you. And here's to teaching love.
We love you. We teach love.